There is no alarm, no violence, no moment that looks like a crime. Just a woman quietly saying yes, and in that instant, a maximum security prison is already breached. In May 2015, at a roadside diner under flickering fluorescent lights in upstate New York, a 51-year-old prison employee agrees to help two convicted murderers walk out of one of the most secure facilities in America. She agrees to be their driver. She agrees to give them the tools. She agrees to destroy her own life. And then she agrees to something far worse. Her husband cannot be allowed to get in the way. This is not the beginning of a prison escape. It's the moment an ordinary civilian becomes the most critical piece of a criminal operation. What makes this story disturbing isn't the audacity of the breakout or the scale of the manhunt that will follow. It's how unremarkable the turning point is. No coercion, no threats, no gun to the head. Just loneliness, attention, and the slow erosion of boundaries until no disappears from the vocabulary. By the time the escape actually happens, the most important line has already been crossed. Because the truth is, prisons don't fail when walls collapse, they fail when people do. And this story isn't about two men crawling through a pipe beneath concrete and steel. It's about how a person with a mortgage, a marriage, and a job badge ends up enabling the largest prison escape in New York State history without ever touching a weapon. This is a story about manipulation, vulnerability, and the quiet moment when feeling invisible becomes more dangerous than doing the wrong thing. Joyce Mitchell did not wake up one morning intending to betray her family or dismantle a prison. Her life didn't collapse all at once. It thinned out quietly over years until there was almost nothing left to hold on to. She was married for 2 decades, raised 2 children, showed up to work every day at a maximum security prison in rural New York, and followed the rules. From the outside, her life looked stable, even respectable. But stability is not the same as connection, and Joyce had been slowly disappearing inside her own routine. Her husband worked nights. Their schedules passed like ships in the dark. Conversations became functional, then infrequent, then optional. Days blended together. Drive to work, supervise inmates, drive home, sleep, repeat. No drama, no abuse. Just silence stretching so long, it began to feel permanent. Inside Clinton Correctional Facility, that silence hardened. The prison demanded emotional restraint, repetition, obedience. Guards learned to detach. Feeling too much was a liability. Over time, Joyce learned the same lesson. Keep your head down. Do your job, don't expect to be seen. And that is where the danger crept in. Not through chaos, but through invisibility. When you spend years feeling unnoticed, attention doesn't register as a warning, it feels like oxygen. Joyce didn't want excitement. She didn't want to burn her life down. She wanted to feel relevant again, wanted again, necessary again. That hunger made her vulnerable in a way no background check could detect. It created a gap between who she was and who she felt she had become. And gaps like that don't stay empty. They get filled by whoever notices first. In a place designed to contain the worst offenders, Joyce was the one slowly being worn down by the environment. The irony is brutal. The system was built to monitor inmates, but it never noticed the employee fading in plain sight. By the time someone finally did, the damage was already underway. Because the most dangerous moment in this story isn't when tools cross a security gate or walls are cut open. It's when a woman realizes that being invisible hurts more than doing something wrong, and that realization becomes the quiet engine driving everything that follows. Richard Matt never approached Joyce Mitchell like a criminal asking for favors. He approached her like a man who understood absence. He watched before he spoke, listened before he moved, and when he finally acted, it felt natural, almost inevitable. Prison psychologists would later describe him as a classic sociopath, not impulsive or violent, but methodical. Someone who learned over decades how to read emotional gaps the way others read body language. He didn't overwhelm Joyce with desire. He offered attention, small, precise, disarming, compliments about her clothes, questions about her day, the kind of interest that lands softly but lingers. Then came the paintings, oil landscapes created inside concrete walls, impossibly personal objects in a place designed to erase individuality. He wasn't just passing time, he was creating something for her, and that distinction mattered. Joyce took them home, hung them in her kitchen, let them occupy space where her marriage no longer did. Matt's notes followed carefully, written never crude, always affirming. "You deserve better. You're wasted here. I see you." Each message pushed her a fraction of an inch further away from the rules she had followed her entire life. David Sweat played a different game. Where Matt was, warmth, Sweat was gravity. He didn't flatter Joyce or romanticize her. He spoke in plans, steps, timelines. He made escape sound less like a fantasy and more like a process already underway. There was no emotional excess in him, only focus. And that made the situation feel real. Together, they formed a closed psychological circuit. Matt made Joyce feel special. Sweat made the future feel inevitable. One pulled her forward with emotion, the other removed the illusion of choice. Joyce didn't experience this as manipulation, she experienced it as purpose. For the first time in years, she wasn't invisible. She was essential. That feeling is intoxicating, especially inside a system that reduces everyone to roles and numbers. Each boundary she crossed, extra supplies, overlooked rules, private conversations felt smaller than the last. And that is how control works best, not through force, but through consent that is reshaped until refusal feels like betrayal. By the time Joyce realized how far she had gone, the dynamic was no longer between a guard and inmates. It was between three people locked into a shared reality, one where the escape wasn't just possible. It felt destined. Beneath Clinton Correctional Facility, far below razor wire and armed towers, existed a second prison that no one was watching. It wasn't hidden by secrecy, but by assumption. Built in the late 1800s, a vast network of steam tunnels ran under the entire complex, designed to carry heat from the power plant to the cell blocks during brutal Adirondack winters. Over time, the tunnels faded from relevance. They weren't guarded. They weren't monitored. No cameras. No motion sensors. No routine inspections. For more than a century, they survived as an architectural afterthought, protected by a single belief: no inmate could ever reach them. Richard Matt and David Sweat saw the flaw immediately. During routine work assignments, they noticed access points, maintenance gaps, inconsistencies between blueprints and reality. What the system treated as dead space, they treated as opportunity. The breakthrough came when they identified a steam pipe roughly 24 inches in diameter, running from the prison's power plant beneath the perimeter wall and out to a public manhole roughly 1,500 feet away, 3 blocks beyond the prison grounds. Freedom wasn't abstract. It had dimensions: distance, weight, time. But there was a problem that had stopped every inmate before them. Steel and concrete don't give way to bare hands. Cutting through reinforced walls and industrial pipe would require professional-grade tools, the kind that trigger metal detectors instantly. That's where Joyce Mitchell became indispensable. She wasn't sneaking contraband past guards. She was walking through the front door with it. Beginning in early 2015, she purchased tools openly at local hardware stores: hacksaw blades, drill bits, steel punches, chisels, items. No one questions in the hands of a middle-aged woman. At home, she embedded them inside packages of frozen hamburger meat, resealed the plastic, and delivered them to the prison kitchen, where bulk shipments were waved through with minimal inspection. From there, the packages made their way to the tailor shop disguised as special food, something Joyce had been bringing for months without consequence. One by one, the tools disappeared into cells. No alarms sounded. No reports were filed. Each successful delivery reinforced a dangerous lesson: the system wasn't paying attention. Night after night, Matt and Sweat worked in silence, cutting for 20 minutes at a time, hiding the damage behind posters, sleeping through daylight counts, then resuming again. Hands blistered, muscles shredded, progress measured in fractions of an inch. This wasn't a jailbreak fueled by adrenaline, it was a construction project fueled by patience. And with every layer of steel that gave way, the escape stopped being a possibility and became an inevitability. The prison above them remained confident in its walls, unaware that the real failure was unfolding far beneath its feet. By May 2015, the escape was no longer theoretical. The walls were cut, the route was mapped, the tools were in place. What remained was not engineering, but human risk. Joyce Mitchell's husband Lyle became that risk the moment the plan moved from tunnels to timing. He knew her routine. He might wake up. He might notice she was gone. He might call the police before dawn. From the perspective of two men serving life sentences, this was not an emotional dilemma. It was a variable that had to be neutralized. The conversation was framed carefully, stripped of violence in its language, presented as necessity rather than murder. Joyce was told the truth in pieces, softened, rationalized, folded into the larger story she had already committed to. And she said yes. Not because she wanted her husband dead, but because she had been trained over months to believe that stopping now would destroy everything she had built with them. This is where the moral collapse completes itself, when loyalty to a fantasy outweighs loyalty to reality. The line that should never exist had been crossed quietly, without drama, without witnesses. But the human body is not as obedient as the human mind. On June 4th, one day before the escape, Joyce's chest tightened, her heart raced, her breath collapsed into panic. She checked herself into a hospital claiming heart trouble, unable to articulate the truth even to herself. The weight of what she had agreed to finally became physical. Kill my husband, drive fugitives to Mexico, become someone who cannot come back. She told everyone except the two men who needed to know. That silence was catastrophic. While Joyce lay in a hospital bed, Matt and Sweat made final preparations underground, unaware the plan had already fractured. When the night came and no car appeared, the choice they faced was brutal in its simplicity: wait and risk discovery, or go anyway with nothing but the tunnel and their own desperation. They chose to move, and in that moment, the escape transformed from a controlled operation into a reckless gamble, driven not by confidence but by the terrifying certainty that there was nothing left to lose. On the night of June 5th, 2015, there is no signal to wait, for no engine idling on a dark street, no reassuring proof that anyone on the outside is still part of the plan. At 11:30 p.m., after final count, Richard, Matt, and David Sweat make the decision that turns preparation into consequence. They peel back the posters in their cells, squeeze through the holes they carved inch by inch, and disappear into the structure behind the walls. Catwalks creak beneath their weight. Steam pipes radiate residual heat. The air grows thicker, louder, more claustrophobic as the prison recedes above them. This is not the triumphant moment escape movies promise. It is slow, uncomfortable, and unforgiving. When they reach the steam tunnel, they cut into a pipe still warm from 180-degree heat, then crawl on hands and knees through a steel cylinder barely 2 feet wide. 500 feet feels endless in total darkness. Elbows scrape metal. Breath shortens. Breath. There's no room to panic, only room to keep moving. Just after midnight, the manhole cover shifts. Cool air pours in. Grass. Night. Silence. They emerge onto a quiet residential street 3 blocks from the prison floodlights glowing faintly in the distance. For a moment, they stand still, stunned by the absence of restraints. Then they move, because standing still is the most dangerous thing they can do. 7 hours later, a correctional officer lifts a blanket during morning count and finds a sweatshirt stuffed with clothes and a crude painted face staring back. At 6:33 a.m., alarms tear through the facility. By noon, the governor is inside the empty cell, and New York State launches its largest manhunt. More than 1,300 officers fan out across a 50-mile radius. Helicopters sweep the Adirondack wilderness with thermal imaging. K-9 units follow scent trails through swamps, forests, and abandoned hunting cabins. Roadblocks choke highways leading north. For 23 days, the search tightens and loosens like a net dragged through unforgiving terrain. The partnership frays under exhaustion. Matt, 49, and slowing struggles to keep pace. Sweat, 35, and relentless pushes forward. They split, turning one pursuit into two. On June 26th, near Malone, a Border Patrol officer hears movement in the brush. Matt raises a stolen shotgun. The officer fires first. Matt dies less than 2 miles from Canada, a photograph of Joyce in his pocket. 2 days later, Sweat is spotted near Constable. He runs. Troopers fire. He is hit twice, still crawling toward the trees before collapsing. 23 days after walking out of a pipe beneath a prison, the escape ends not with freedom, but with the full weight of consequence finally catching up. The official accounting of this case fits neatly into court records and sentencing charts, but its real impact lingers far beyond those lines. Joyce Mitchell received 7 years in prison for smuggling tools, a punishment that addressed what she did but never fully captured why she did it. Richard Matt was killed in a field less than 2 miles from the Canadian border, his escape ending not in freedom, but in a violent stillness that mirrored the life he had always lived. David Sweat survived, adding 7 more years to a sentence that already guaranteed he would never leave prison, spending long stretches in isolation with nothing but time to replay every choice. Yet the most unsettling outcome is not found in any verdict. It lies in what this story exposes about systems designed to feel invulnerable. Clinton Correctional Facility did not fall because its walls were weak. It failed because it assumed threats only came from the inside. The tunnels were forgotten, but so was the person who made them usable. Joyce did not bypass security with force or cunning. She walked through it, carrying groceries enabled by routine and indifference. This case endures because it refuses to stay confined to crime. It becomes a mirror. It asks how many people are slowly eroded by invisibility, how many rules are obeyed until they quietly stop meaning anything. How often emotional neglect becomes the opening no lock can seal. In the end, nothing truly escaped that prison, except a warning: when human needs go unseen for too long, the damage doesn't announce itself. It builds patiently, silently, until it breaks everything it touches. This case isn't remembered because 2 men escaped a prison. It's remembered because the system never saw the person who made that escape possible. It's a reminder that danger doesn't always arrive with violence. Sometimes it grows quietly in isolation, routine, and emotional neglect. In a society built on productivity and resilience, we often overlook the human cost of being unseen. If this story resonated with you, if it made you reflect on how vulnerability is exploited and how easily lines can blur, take a moment to engage. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more investigative stories that go beyond the crime and ask why it happened.